If you are over the age of 40 or even over the age of 50, trying to build a personal brand the same way these 22-year-old creators are doing it on TikTok, now you will see why it feels forced to you, why it feels like it's so confusing, and why you are so exhausted. Now, here's the real truth that nobody wants to come out and actually tell you. See, your age is not the problem. And I've never understood why so many people want to say when you're over the age of this 20-something and you get in your 30s, it's time for you to just take a seat back. It's not the problem. Your experience is actually your biggest advantage. Now, I know some people are going to get mad at me for saying this, but before we start asking yourself, are you willing to put in the time and ask what is in it for you? Now, this can truly work, but only if you brand the right way. Now, here's why some people are going to get upset. Over time, you're going to realize that there are some things that old heads know that nobody else wants to act like they know. Let's get into that. Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is your man, Anthony Porter, over here at host of the Podcast for Profits, where we help podcasters turn conversations into currency. Now, this video is specifically for those between the ages of 40 and 50 years old. We're going to talk about that. We have to bring this up. You got experience, man, and stories and all the knowledge. So we need to get this out there because a lot of people think that branding over these particular age numbers is just absurd. It's just like we are the forgotten tribe or anything like that because we're not. Now, you want to build a personal brand that leads to clients, leads you to income, and leads you to opportunities, not likes and not metrics. See, the thing of it is a lot of people don't understand. Brands will see Gen X getting busy out here. And when they see Gen X, they want to holler, oh man, hold up now. They might be on to something. Now, don't get it twisted. I'm not knocking the younger generation because you can learn a lot from the younger generation. All right, so I'm going to give them their flowers because I'm not taking nothing away from them. I'm going into the mind of some of your top name brands. And some of these name brands understand that they get with these younger millennials and Gen Zs and all of these, 22 to 35-year-olds. They know they got a heck of a following. They know that they got something going on. And they want to get this out into the open. But sometimes they have to realize the product that they're pushing is not what this younger generation is looking for. So I recently just watched a video on YouTube, maybe about 3 hours ago, and they was talking about how Shedeur Sanders and his brother Shallow have secured a $100 million deal with Amiri, the urban clothing line. They was just over in Paris. I'm sorry. They was in Paris, and they secured this deal. $100 million. And mind you, this guy got cut, Shallow got cut, and Shedeur basically was a 5th-round draft pick, right? Now, what does this have to do with being over the age of 40 and 50? In this video, they talked about how Shedeur and Shallow are doing it because they have the younger generation. Now, you can have that younger generation, and they listen, Amiri is doing exactly what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to go out here and get that urban look for this generation, right? But these other brand companies are starting to understand and starting to see that if they're trying to get involved, they're going to need the unks and the aunts, the elders, the 40s and 50-year-olds to get this thing done. So by the end of this video, I'm going to help you understand exactly how your personal brand being done the smart way, so you're not out here chasing the trends or trying to be someone that you're not. And then also being able to fit the identity of some of these companies that they want to get it out there in the open. And so we're going to talk about some issues like the core problem, why most people tend to fail. And here's what most people over the ages of 40 and 50 mess up. They think personal branding means being on every single platform. They think it's about posting every single day. And then some of them have even adapted the matter of dancing, pointing at text, and copying influencers who are truly half their freaking age. Now, here's my advice to you. Never, ever was this advice intended to be built for you. Personal branding is not about attention. It's about the trust. They want to understand this. Listen, if I'm going to pay someone $100 million, are they going to show up today? That trust, that trust doesn't come from being loud, the most obnoxious person. It comes from being clear. So you gotta understand it. Brands are starting to look at that now. Me being over the age of 50, I'm gonna give you some tactics that have drawn some attention, but I haven't secured it yet. And because I haven't secured it, it's not because it's not being offered. The fact that we have some things that need to be worked out. That's what they look for. They look for that maturity. They are looking for people who literally come in, be on time, be professional, look professional, have a solid foundation, have a solid follow. You don't need 50 people to go to a meeting, okay? So we're gonna break down the core framework, high value teaching. And we're gonna get into some steps because branding your experience is not your personality. See, you don't need a bigger personality. You already have something more valuable, and that's you've earned the wisdom, all right? So ask yourself, what's the problem? When you ask yourself what's the problem, ask yourself and go deeper and say, what problems have I already solved in real life? Or what do people already come to me for when it comes to this advice game? You know, and it's crazy that I say that because I just sat down maybe twice this week with a couple of gentlemen and we was having conversations about the stock market. See, I take money that I earn and I reinvest it because I'm looking for that generational thing. I'm looking to take care of the kids beyond the kids. You know what I'm saying? So they was asking me how I got into the stock market, and it's drawn a lot of attention because there was 2 that turned into 4, and those 4 wound up turning into 6 more people. And we're just sitting there chopping it up. It's a free game. And it started out, and I'll say this, it started out as just, I call him an old head because he's older than me. And then one of my friends, and then it was a couple other coworkers, and then a couple of younger cats had slid over. And I want you to understand this. The reason why I broke it down like that was because a lot of people tend to think that you're picking sides. There's no sides to be picked. When it comes to making money, you got people out here who are working good jobs, but they want to have something to fall back on in case something happens. And so what has happened is I started building the trust. And from the advice that I've given, these folk have started to open up brokerage accounts and things like that. So that's how you get your foundation. And it's the same thing with your brand. So your personal brand should be like, I've been there, I've seen this, and here's what actually works. So that's part of number 1. And part of number 2 is you need to pick one clear outcome that you can help someone get. Now, strong personal brands don't say, I help everyone with everything. They say, I help beginners get started. I help professionals avoid costly mistakes. I'm helping coworkers build a financial background through the stock market. Because a lot of people have always been afraid of it. I'm not. And so with my Podcast for Profits, we talk about how to build or how we turn conversations into currency. What was going on at work was just something that I enjoyed doing, and I started helping some folk out. So, and then you have to understand this. When you're also doing that, you got to be able to say, again, another example, I help people shorten their learning curve. Well, geez Louise, that's exactly what I just did this weekend, this past week. All right, so you got one problem, you got one audience, one main outcome. Clarity builds confidence, and confidence builds trust. So we need to make sure that we focused on that just as well, okay? Then you got step number 3. We're gonna talk about number 3 because this is one of those things you gotta understand. Use long form content to build authority faster. How do I do that? How do I get people to understand that my Podcast for Profits, is the long form content that I use, that I post on Apple, Spotify, YouTube? But this is where YouTube dominates. If you're over 50, long form content works in your favor because you can explain context. You can tell all the stories that you need to tell. You can teach instead of perform. See, teaching instead of performing is one of those things. See, you don't need those viral clips. A lot of people, here's a question. While we're sitting here, I need you to do this. I need you to understand this. When you sit there and you watch those viral videos, because I'm guilty, I watch them. I love watching them. Some of them are hilarious. Some of them, the dance crazes are outstanding because they take the time to put in. But ask a question, go in their inbox and just be meddling and say, how much money you get from it? Most people won't share. And it's not about calling them out. It's not about that, because if you're following them, you want to know how much money you're going to get, right? That's the thing. You want to know. So you don't need viral clips. You need conversations that positions you as the authority. You understand what I'm saying? So then you got to think about this, because this is one of those steps that we need to talk about. We turn content into conversations. Here's the biggest shift most people miss. Your content isn't the product. Your conversation is. Every video, every podcast episode, every post should answer one question. What conversation do you want this to lead to? This is how content turns into clients. Okay, this is how it turns into clients. And then I think when you sit there and you really pay attention to it, use it as a life lesson, because here's what people don't understand. When you go shopping, when you go to like a car dealership, you got to have what we're going to talk about next is called the mindset. But piggyback off what we just talked about is turning conversations into clients. Salespeople would take and have you buying the world if you're not careful. Okay? So when we talk about turning conversations into clients, what they're doing is hey, how you doing? Welcome to XYZ car dealership, home of the, and then they have like 3 or 4 different cars, and they pick one just by looking at you. So it's called stereotyping. And it's not black or white, it's male or female. Hey, you will look great in this Porsche, talking to the female. But over here, if you're a gentleman walking through the door, they've already assumed that because you walk through the door, you got a little bit of money. So you're going to look great in this Ferrari. Not knowing you might want the Porsche, she might want the Ferrari. So that's the thing you got to understand. But that mind shift is what you got to be. You got to have the aha moment. And so when you think about that aha moment, the frame that you got to really pay attention to, and the frame that you need to really be thinking about is personal branding is not about starting over. It's about documenting what you've already known, what you already know, in a way that helps others. So if you've already done something and it was so successful, and what you need to do is you need to make sure that you can jot that down and be able to show it or teach it to someone else, because you're not late to the party. You're right on time. Your experience is what is needed, because it actually helps build trust. And when you stop trying to impress and start trying to help, that's when the conversation just naturally flows off the tongue and becomes so natural that it turns everything into currency. So quit thinking that you have to be in the new trends and be over here dancing and be over here doing all of that craziness when your expertise is already out there. And that's why these personal brands turn into brand deals with people over the age of 40 and 50, because they've experienced, they've seen it. Some of us have lived through when Coca-Cola was up, Coca-Cola went down, and Coca-Cola came back up. Some of us have been there when you seen tragedy turn into triumph, and then back to tragedy, only to come up out of the flames again and standing there like Rocky and winning the world heavyweight title. Understand that. You have to understand. The one main thing that a lot of people don't get right now is the young folk want to be right. It's not that they truly want to be right. They just want to be heard, but then they don't want to listen. Understand where I'm coming from. Again, this is not a slap at the younger generation. This is a slap at the fact that, A, there's no comparison. You can shout out numbers all you want, and this is where it gets funny. They want to tell you about Mr. James versus Mr. Jordan. Okay? It's always a conversation. You go on TikTok, there's one guy, he starts this count. Nobody cares no more, right? But here's the thing, you throw up numbers. LeBron has been to 9 different playoff finals, but he's won 4. Jordan's been to 6. He won 6. Remember, he retired for 2 years and came back and won 3 more. But then we keep leaving out the Mamba, Mr. Bryant. He won 5, one team. That did people come and join him? Yeah. Nobody left the Lakers or the Bulls and went to go win a title. Understand that. Before you go at somebody, do your homework and make sure your stats is correct. They keep talking about they played a bunch of plumbers. There's a lot of guys in this NBA right now that wouldn't survive. Y'all think Draymond Green is bad. Can you imagine you coming down the middle trying to dunk on somebody? A person like Anthony Edwards, and you got a Bill Laimbeer, a Rick Mahorn, a Hakeem Olajuwon, a Patrick Ewing, a Timmy D, a David Robinson, Detlef Shrimp, Sean Kemp. These cats is in the middle, man. They gonna split your wig. And then they gonna look at you and tell you, man, whatever, man, shut up. Cause some of these cats ain't built like that, man. Dylan Brooks ain't built like that. So this is what we're saying. Your conversation, your experience can turn your personal brand into a whopping business. Now, I know I rambled on that last part, but I just had to get that out because it's been weighing heavy on my head today. All right. So here's what you can do today. Write down 3 problems people ask you about all the time. All right. Choose one platform for long form content. Me, I got 2 because I've mastered one and I'm working on the other one. So my podcast is my long form content. I'm working on the YouTube version of it, and everything's going to be kosher. But you pick one. For you to pick one. And then start sharing stories, lessons, and frameworks, not trends. All right, momentum comes from clarity, not complexity. You got it? You with me? Now, if you're ready to turn your conversation into currency, please make sure you grab the Client Generating Podcast Blueprint. I'm going to leave a link in the description below. And if you are seeing this anywhere else, just do me a favor, comment Blueprint 2026, and we'll get it right over to you, especially if you're over on Instagram. All right, comment Blueprint 2026, and we'll get that right over to you. So if that's it, man, I'm going to see y'all in the next video. Thanks for stopping by. It's your man, Anthony Porter, over here at Podcast for Profits. Welcome to Podcast for Profits TV. We out here. Peace.